Hi everybody, you might not know this, but I have been collecting tropical plants since I was a little kid. I started this hobby probably in the 4th grade, and I'm at my parents' house today, which is always a beautiful walk down memory lane because I have had a lot of the plants behind me since high school. Some of them are over 20 years old. They've been with me for a pretty good chunk of my life. So I'm going to show you a few of those plants, how they've grown over the years in New York as an indoor plant 6 months out of a year, outside, as you know, during the summer. And you can check back on some of those old videos if you want to see what they look outside during the summertime. But we're going to talk about what they look like indoors, where I keep them, how big they've gotten, how big can you expect the plants that you have on your countertop right now to be. You might be surprised. So we're starting things off with my favorite plant, palm trees. And stay tuned. In a few seconds, we're going to show you how a little tiny, my first palm tree that I ever got from the Orlando airport, they still sell these, looks today. So I'm going to show you that in a little bit. That's not these. These are tropical palm trees that I bought at a pretty big size. The bottle palm is 10 years old, I believe. I think I got it in 2014. So it's going on 11 years this summer. And the palm behind it was a high school graduation gift. So that is now over 15 years old. That one was about as tall as I was, a little taller than me when I got it. And now it's touching the ceiling. It's got to be about 14 feet tall. Look at how lush the Adondila palm foliage is. This is actually like a pretty decent indoor-outdoor palm tree. It does okay inside the house. Majesty palms, for example, they're a little bit more fickle inside the house. Biggest problem with Adondila is going to be mealybugs, spider mites, which I do not have a problem with. Mealybugs, spider mites, or any pests in this collection for one reason that I'm going to tell you a little later in the video. But right now, we're going to talk about this Adondila palm because I think it's the most beautiful palm that you can get for a container. It has that palmy look with the rings. That is a beautiful feature on palm trees. And then you get this crown shaft followed by the beautiful, beautiful curvy fronds. This is your classic palm tree look, and it can stay in containers its entire life. They grow in pretty terrible soil in the tropics. A lot of palm trees grow in terrible soil. So the secret to keeping it happy is water, 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 fast draining soil. It's like a cactus in terms of a soil it can tolerate. You just don't want it to ever have wet feet, but you want it to always have water. This one gets like a little drink 3 or 4 times a week, and in the summer it gets water every single day. It loves heat, it loves sunshine. When it goes outside though, you need to give it shade for like a month because all of these new fronds that are developing, there's one opening up right now that looks beautiful, that is going to burn if you take it right outside. So that's my tallest palm tree. This is my thickest. Look at her. You can see why they call it a bottle palm. So you have this beautiful kind of large, thick trunk on the bottom, and then it gets nicely tapered. Lenny! We have a little puppy Lenny over here who's playing with the tripod. Lenny, come say hi! Lenny! I don't think she likes the camera. This, you may be familiar with, is a rubber tree. Amazing, amazing plant. It's a ficus. I also have the not so amazing, but I've been having luck, fiddle leaf fig, another ficus. These two plants are doing very well. The fiddle leaf ficus was actually a clearance rack special for $5. It was literally dead when I got it like 4 or 5 years ago at Home Depot. I just wanted to rescue it, and it's doing really well. The secret was that it was outside. I got it in like May, and it spent the whole summer outside recovering. Was stable when I brought it inside. Never buy a clearance fiddle leaf fig and keep it inside your house and expect it to do well. It's just, no, it never comes back. But outside, they could do magical things. Okay, now my rubber tree I got about 15 years ago, that was a very small plant when I bought it. So this is how large they can get, and very wide too. You could cut this back to your liking, but I love big. Bigger the better. This is a Cordyline fruticosa, a Hawaiian tea plant. And what's really amazing is that although we grow these for their foliage, if you bring them inside the house during the winter, they pretty much always will bloom for you. I actually would prefer that they don't bloom because the flowers are kind of messy and sometimes it, uses up a lot of energy, but it's a nice novelty. It always blooms around Christmas time. And again, like all of these red cordyline plants, they just always seem to bloom inside the house. Anyway, I promised I would show you my first palm tree, so let me show you it. You might not expect what you see. Okay, pause. I'm getting very nostalgic filming this video, so I have to prompt you with a question. Let me know what your most meaningful plant is and why. I would love to hear the type of plant if you can, maybe a little story behind it. This is the palm tree that I came home with in 2004. I was at the airport in Orlando, and in a very tiny pot was a parlor palm. I didn't know what it was at the time because they don't tell you. They're just like, bring like a piece of Florida home with you. And it's a little tiny palm tree seedling. I think that it's so cool that it has survived all of these years. Parlor palms never get very big, so this is really about the largest size that they get. This is a Chamadorea elegans. I'm going to show you my Chamadorea microspadix, which is its taller, more hardy cousin. But this is your classic indoor palm tree. It is one of my favorite palm trees for indoors. Usually it's kind of like a little bushy palm tree, but if you have it for long enough, like I've had it for 21 years now, it will produce a trunk. And you don't even need to wait that long for it to produce a trunk. Especially if you actually live in Florida and have this like in your landscaping, it's going to produce this like little thin pencil trunk a lot sooner. But anyway, yeah, it's a pretty happy plant. I've actually seen it nearly die many times, so maybe I'm lying. Maybe it's not a happy plant. But at this point, it's a healthy plant. It has some flowers on it or inflorescences. So this is where seeds would grow if it had a partner to pollinate with. A pretty fun thing about growing plants is that it brings back so many memories. Lenny has been causing chaos this entire film. What do you have to say for yourself? My aloe vera plants are getting huge, and that means that they're starting to do something really cool. This is a south-facing window, and my aloe vera plants are absolutely loving it. So much that they think it's spring. I usually get blooms in June, but it decided to bloom in January instead. I love the way that aloe vera flowers look. They have these really nice tubular flowers that hummingbirds love. Unfortunately, no hummingbirds are going to be enjoying these blooms, but I am. I think this is the coolest thing. So really no secret to getting aloe vera plants to bloom. They just need to be old enough. And there's an amazing smell in the dining room right now too, and it's coming from my plumerias. Plumeria tend to be dormant inside the house this time of the year, but because they're right against a south-facing window and my mom has been watering the plants, she's been kind of generous with the watering, so the Plumeria think that it's spring. That's okay because they'll settle it out outside. They may not bloom as much this summer, but at least we're enjoying the blooms now. The fragrance really is pretty amazing, so even though they're not supposed to be in bloom right now, I am enjoying the flowers. I say they're not supposed to be in bloom because they'll bloom a lot more vigorously if they're getting full sun outside in the summer heat, but they seem to be doing just fine. Although another very valid reason to keep Plumeria dormant is because they are very prone to spider mites. My collection of plants is very old, so the secret to not having spider mites, mealybugs, scale, it's to not introduce too many new plants to the collection. Because my parents' house is pretty filled to the brim with plants, I don't have new plants coming in every year. It's the same old plants and none of them are infected with these insects and pests, so they don't have any problems. So yes, I can grow Plumeria inside the house and I don't even need to use neem oil because I don't have a spider mite infestation on any of these plants during the summer, winter, spring, or fall. All of that comes from new plants. Well, this was my parents' formal dining room, but it's covered in plants right now. South-facing windows are a hot commodity if you're a tropical plant lover. One thing you might notice is how shiny the floor looks. That's because it's not the floor. This is a giant plastic sheet that, it may even be glass, but it keeps the floor protected from all of the water that these plants are dripping. You can see the hardwood floor. You can see the plastic. Kind of smart idea. It works. I say it's a smart idea, which means you know I didn't come up with it. That was my dad's idea. A couple other small plants I didn't mention. I have this pineapple plant that I got from a pineapple top at the grocery store. I have this poinsettia that usually blooms during Christmas time, but this year it decided it's on strike and it wants nothing to do with it. I also have a smaller Parlor Palm, in case you're wondering what they actually look like at the size that you see them at the store and not, at 21 whatever years old. I tucked some bromeliads into the containers for a little flair, and also because I had nowhere else to put them, honestly. I am actually loving this begonia. It's called Marmaduke, and every time I come here, it's wilted because my mom just never really thinks about watering it, and it just pops right back up. I haven't been home in like 3 or 4 weeks. I've been busy with work, so I haven't had a chance to visit my parents. And I watered it last night, and now it's back. And I just love how fuzzy those fuzzy leaves are. This is my smaller tea plants that I just decided to rescue last minute, and you see even these have blooms on it. So this is the front foyer of my parents' house. It has the tallest ceilings, and that is where my tallest Plumeria is. It's semi-dormant right now, but it is actually, even still, covered in blooms. This variety, I think, is called Salsa. I bought it as a no identification, just really basic cutting off of eBay in 2009. I was only in the 9th grade, and it has grown and grown and grown. And now it's kind of stuck at this same size, which is perfect. So it doesn't grow a whole lot. It just blooms constantly all year long. I get flowers in May and June and July. It'll take a little bit of a break and then they'll set buds for the second half of summer. The fragrance is just so beautiful from this. I also have a very old croton plant. I think I'm going to cut this back. The nice thing about croton and hibiscus is that these plants can be root pruned really easily. What that means is you cut about 1/3 of the top off and then you go into the dirt and you cut about 1/3 of the roots off, and it'll sort of reinvigorate the plant. So that root pruning can really keep these plants in containers forever. I actually did it with this hibiscus that I'm going to show you. By the way, I am dangling from the staircase to get some extra close-up shots of the Plumeria, and I'm noticing so many new flower heads. Look at how many inflorescences there are. We have the one that's in bloom right now. There's one behind it, so that's number 2, number 3. I'm counting 4. There's one back there, that's 5. I'm counting 5 or 6. Which means like probably 600 flowers if each one produces 100 blooms. Sorry, I know that things aren't laid out all pretty in this room, but it's all about survival for these plants and maximizing space for my parents. Right in the kind of corner is my tallest and oldest hibiscus. It's nothing fancy as far as the type of hibiscus, but plants and people, they have this beautiful relationship where I think plants give us a gift that allows us to remind us of people, scents, textures, all of these things I think unlock some great memories. And I bring this up because my oldest hibiscus is from a friend whose parent gave it to me when I was in the 6th or 7th grade, and it was really small, and she wasn't well, and unfortunately she passed away a few years later than that, and she's been gone now for about 15 years, but the plant is still here, so it's just a nice way to honor her. And this plant would have gotten too big, or it would have used up all of the nutrients in its pot and died if I didn't root prune it and cut it back 1/3. So I pruned the roots about 2 or 3 years ago, cut it back 1/3, and it responded to it really beautifully. That year, you will usually lose some blooms, but then the following year, it reinvigorates, and it really does overall help the plant out. I wouldn't recommend doing it all the time because of that. It is stressful for the plant, but it comes back from it very well. Tropical plants respond to stress very well because a lot of these tropical plants are used to stress in the tropics. Like this Chamadorea microspadix, it looks very tropical. It's basically a parlor palm. It's a cousin of it. But unlike the parlor palm, which can't survive hard freezes, this can survive snow. And at my house, you've probably seen me talk about Chamadorea microspadix because that palm tree has survived snow and temperatures down to 20 degrees, but I keep this one inside in my parents' house. Honestly, I personally don't think you can have a tropical plant collection without a Monstera. I just keep on cutting this thing back. I've had it for so many years, but like the mother plant is long gone, and these are just some of the cuttings that I had from that mother plant. They're not cuttings anymore, but they were. And look at how look at how long the trunk is. I think it's time for another cutting. This Schefflera is just an amazing houseplant. I could cut it back, but I always decide not to because I just get such a kick out of how big and tall it is. Some of these containers, though, are just absolutely filled with roots. So at this point, they need a lot more water than you might expect. But otherwise, these are pretty low maintenance plants. And the jade plant looks so good in a strawberry planter. I love these planters. I just couldn't imagine a better plant for this planter. I think next year what I'm going to do is try and find another little maybe variegated jade plant to just sort of poke in between those holes. I have a jade plant in this hole, but not in those. And I have an agave in that one that I kind of accidentally put there and it's getting really way too big. All right, so that's the tour. Thank you so much to my parents who have always supported all of my crazy hobbies and continue to bring these plants. Well, I bring the plants inside the house, but they water them. My mom waters these plants about once or twice a week, and she loves plants because I love plants, but this is not her hobby. She does it because she is just such a wonderful person, and I can never repay her for that, but I can thank her for it for the whole internet to see. And I just wanted to give you a little tour of how things look in the middle of winter in my parents' house. It is just as green as mine, and I'm excited to see these go back outside soon. As much fun as it is to spend quality time with these when we're all stuck inside during the winter, I think we're all ready to get our space back. Anyway, thank you for tuning in here. We've got a lot more videos on my channel coming up, and just a reminder that this is a channel that I do for fun. That's all. I do this as a career. If you want to see more of that, please continue to find me on social media, but this is just my little diary and maybe a place where we can share and talk about all of our plants. So with that, I will prompt you with a question.